Tonight on News 5 Live, PSU president says that Simplex Design is the legal owner of Hilltop headquarters, but asserts that sale was illegally done and the union won't be evicted. The IMF says economic recovery is underway, but pace is slowing down as Belize faces external risks. 2 Camalota residents are injured in a traffic accident in Roaring Creek after the motorcycle they were traveling on crashed head-on into a pickup truck. Various persons have been detained, but no charges yet in the murder of Jamal Eligio. As the stony coral tissue loss disease continues to spread, it threatens the health of our reef system. And KTV Latino is back and with a bang. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast. Welcome to News 5 Live for Tuesday, October 8th. I am Marlene Cuellar. There is more tonight from the Public Service Union in respect of its former Hilltop property. The union says it will not be moved from its Hilltop headquarters in Belmopan. A few days ago, the PSU President Gerald Henry received a letter from attorney for Simplex Designs Esteban Pereira telling the union that it had until October 31st to get out or be evicted. But the PSU is not budging, even though Henry has acknowledged that Simplex Designs is the legal owner of the property. The property was sold to Simplex Designs by the current Belmopan City Council in November 2018. Despite meetings and negotiations, the PSU was unable to recover its property. It was then decided that a new property would be located, but the PSU would pursue its claim to equitable interest for improvements it made to the property over several years. In light of what it says is a critical piece of evidence, however, the PSU says that it is ready to battle for the property. According to Henry, the new piece of evidence has made the Council of Management reverse its initial decision and proceed to the courts.
Initially, if you recall, there was a mandate given to the past president for us to fight, right? And when I got in, the legal team had provided us with, based on the information they had at the time, that we didn't have so much of a strong case. That was taken back to membership, and we had gotten a new mandate, right, to say, well, okay, we are going to give up in terms of fighting for the property, but we have always maintained that we are going to fight with regards to the equitable interest that we have. Now that we have this evidence, right, and it's pretty convincing to the legal team, I'm certain that the general membership now is happy, that we are going to take back this fight. And we're not giving up. They are actually the legal owners of the place, right? And so maybe I misspoke or how I said it, it came out the wrong way. But it's actually that they are legal owners of the property, simply because of the fact that they are the ones who are registered at the lands department as the owners, right? But that doesn't mean that the process by which they got it was legal and so on. No? So and I think that is where the union, that is the angle that the union is taking the fight on. The process was not really done legally.
Henry says that the PSU has hired the services of Courtney Koi, LLP, and the documents should be filed before October 31st. He says that the union will not vacate the property because that would mean that they are giving it up.
I believe that this week the legal team is supposed to file our case, right, in the courts, and so certainly that will be before the 30th. And we also have the fact that the caution is still on the property, right, and so we, like I said, we are going forward from those angles now. We didn't close the door completely, just simply because we got the new mandate from them the last time. Right, and so we are moving forward with that, and so far we have been getting very good responses from our membership, right? That they want to see the union fight for what rightly belongs to us. The advice is that we should not move, because moving would essentially mean that we have accepted the fact that we are giving up on the property, right? And we don't have that option right now, because we do have an interest in the property. We have, like I said in previous interviews, we have, if nothing else, we have equitable interest based on the improvements that we have made over the years and so on, right? So there's no way we are going to move out of the property just simply based on a letter from a lawyer.
Henry did not disclose the critical piece of evidence he claims he has, but reports that the former mayor of Belmopan, Simeon Lopez, gifted the property to the then president of the PSU surfaced today. Lopez, however, denied these claims, saying that he did no such thing. In fact, Lopez says he does not recall who the PSU president was during his tenure. If proof can be produced that he did give the property to the PSU, Lopez says he will retract his words and accept the assertion. A resident from Camalote is in a critical but stable condition tonight at the Carl Hushta Memorial Hospital after he was severely injured during an accident on the George Price Highway. William Franco and Jose Gonzalez were on a motorcycle traveling to Roaring Creek when they collided head-on into a pickup truck. Gonzalez was also injured, but he has been released from the hospital. Both were not wearing helmets. According to Gonzalez, speeding may have been a factor from the offending vehicle. News 5's Dwayne Moody reports.
2 men survived the traffic accident on Monday night in Roaring Creek after the motorcycle they were riding on crashed into a pickup truck traveling in the opposite direction. William Franco and Jose Gonzalez were en route from Camalote Village to Chun's store in Roaring Creek. Franco was commanding the motorbike. As the duo cleared the pedestrian crossing, a pickup truck overtaking another vehicle came in their path. The motorcycle crashed head-on with the pickup truck. The impact flung the men to the pavement. Jose Gonzalez, who rode on the back of the bike, received injuries to his left leg, a cut to his head, and abrasions to several parts of his body. He has since been treated and released from the Western Regional Hospital.
Around 9:30, 10, about that hour, when we made it go wrong, when I think the vehicle was a black vehicle, black truck, black. And so when while we go and as we pass a bump, I see one next car come, right? So I tell Bale, watch out, because I don't see the signal where they put so, but you know they see we don't see her. So but I never know if that was a woman or that was a man, because when we get an impact, we just fly and right there, and all my leg, everything, scrape up. I thank God no, that alive, because I couldn't make it out, and I get one in my head too.
Okay.
You understand? I think I broke the
And then your feet as well?
Yeah, my foot bust up from here, like from here to here, got about 6-7 stitch, and then all of the skin fire, everything totally gone.
So what are the doctors saying? Will you be able to walk on the foot again?
Well, he said, well, I have to stay to check, because they said they have to take one X-ray for see if no bone or something maybe crack inside or something.
Franco, on the other hand, received severe injuries to the leg, the chest, and head. He was taken via ambulance to the Western Regional Hospital, but soon after rushed to the Carl Hushta Memorial Hospital, where he remains admitted in a critical but stable condition.
I don't know how that one what happened to him, because I think he get one bad injury in the head, and say I think the skull or something cracked on the side or something. If foot broke from 3 parts, and his skull. So I don't really know if he will live or whatever, you understand? Quick that I shop but Mr. Chun me going, you understand? So we never me going far. Right that Chun me going, because there we me going go buy some. He me collect some money from one man when me wanted to, so but we couldn't reach there. You understand?
Who took you guys to the hospital?
The ambulance, yeah. We were there for half an hour up on the ground there, and the ambulance no one reach. And like a lot of people get crowded and tell you, no, pick up them people, no carry them people at hospital. They tell the police, and the police never want to do it, because they said don't call the ambulance. Half an hour we were there on the ground. You think that play that? No, man, therefore they move more faster. That's why people dead sometimes in an accident, because they don't move fast.
The men didn't wear any protective gear while traveling on the motorcycle. Gonzalez says that the accident could have been worse, but at this time, he's unable to work and needs assistance.
Yes, another one. From Yana, got two recon, right? So when we go, we don't cross the bump. So you know the bump always, you slow down. But I look like then, you know, why like in the run race or something? Because how we are get up impact right so. And you know that our village, our vehicles not supposed to run the higher speed, yeah. Because suppose it could make kill we. I just want to make the lady kindness or something, make it try help we at least for until meanwhile we know I can work, understand? Because then she would drive carefully too.
The driver of the vehicle has since been served with a notice of intended prosecution. Dwayne Moody for News 5.
Last week, Commissioner of Police Chester Williams indicated that Sergeant Sean Walton and Constables Edward Peterson and Bernard Caetano are being recommended for dismissal from the force, resulting from the death of Nestor Vasquez Jr. The 60-year-old died in June of massive injuries to his head sustained while he was locked up in a cell at the police station while the officers were on duty. The Vasquez family today issued a release on the decision by the police tribunal. The matter now goes before the Attorney General and the Public Service Commission. While the Vasquez family is pleased with the progress so far, it is calling on the department not to treat it as an isolated incident. They note that too often officers have been accused of improper behavior and excessive use of force, and that the department is duty-bound to address the culture of brutality and inhumanity within its organization. The family also reiterates their call for an acute unit at the KHMH to provide short-term urgent care to persons experiencing an acute and volatile psychotic episode, and 2, a forensic unit for patients to provide medium-term care to persons whose mental health condition involves prolonged episodes which may pose a threat to themselves or others. The statement concludes by saying that the family still awaits a decision from the DPP on any criminal charges to be brought against Sergeant Sean Walton and Constables Edward Peterson and Bernard Caetano. The latest IMF report, though in preliminary stages, says that while economic recovery is underway, the pace is slowing. It reports heightened spending on wages and public investment and weaker revenue than expected, putting the 2019 budget's target at risk. As to the macroeconomic outlook, the news is bleak. Elevated public debt is as high as 100% of GDP, even as Belize faces external risks from a host of issues such as blacklisting. News 5's Isani Caetano reports.
The International Monetary Fund has released a report describing initial findings following an official staff visit to Belize between September 23rd and October 4th. Led by Deputy Division Chief Daniel Lee from the Western Hemisphere Department of the IMF, meetings were held with Prime Minister Dean Barrow, Central Bank Governor Joy Grant, and Financial Secretary Joseph Waite, among other representatives of government as well as the public and private sectors. The preliminary results indicate that Belize's economic recovery maintains a slow pace, a fact highlighted in the PM Barrow's Independence Day address.
Belize's economic performance in the first quarter of this year has been spectacular. GDP grew in the 3 months from January through March by a most unusual 5.2%. And the even better accompanying news was that the unemployment rate fell to a historic low of 7.6%. Now, admittedly, the second quarter GDP greatly lagged the first quarter, and an actual decline of 0.8% was recorded. But when the 2 quarters are put together, in aggregate, we are still much ahead of par and much ahead of our peers in the region.
While the Prime Minister touted double-digit growth in tourism arrivals in 2018, pointing to marketing initiatives, more flights from major cities, and strong trade relations, recent data from the Statistical Institute of Belize indicate a decline in economic activity.
Growth and development, however, have always been recognized as 2 different things. One does not necessarily include the other, and in fact, they can sometimes sharply diverge. When Belize, therefore, experiences a happy confluence of growth and development proceeding in tandem, one behind the other, of more people being put to work and being lifted out of poverty, it is indeed a conjuncture of which we can be proud.
Despite carrying out significant fiscal consolidation since 2017, the rate of adjustment has slowed to a snail's pace. The approved budget for the financial year 2019-2020 focused on a primary fiscal surplus of a little over 2% of the gross domestic product. However, the latest figures show increased expenditure in wages and public investment. The result has been weaker revenue than what was anticipated, placing the target of the financial plan in jeopardy.
The result of all this is that people wary from worry. Worry about their personal safety. Worry about their economic security, about poverty and deprivation. Worry about an uncertain future, and more so, worried about the kind of nation we are building for our children. How could they not feel this way when our poor, instead of being lifted up, are being dragged into greater poverty due to an all but stagnant economy? How could they not feel this way when our middle class is shrinking and collapsing under burdensome taxes and the lack of vision by their government?
To reduce public debt from where it stood 1 year ago, a primary fiscal surplus that is greater than what was intended in the 2019-2020 budget is necessary in order to achieve practical levels over the long term so as to safeguard against shocks. External risks, nonetheless, are ever present. Belize's inclusion on the European Union list of non-cooperative tax jurisdictions could disrupt investment and trade flows.
We have been trying to work with the European Union to, in fact, produce the legislation that they require in a form acceptable to them, because that is what is necessary in order to get us removed from the blacklist. It is time sensitive. Their next meeting is being held just after, I think, the middle of this month, and that is why we would wish to pass the required legislation in the case of the House today, and hopefully the legislation can also get through the Senate next week so that we would then be able to offer proof of the assent by His Excellency the Governor General to the European Union.
That piece of legislation goes before the Upper House on Wednesday. The IMF Executive Board meets in November to discuss Belize's Article 4 consultation. Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.
Coming up, a coral disease is threatening the reef system.
:30 p.m. Come see this year's new KTV Latina contestants as they compete for the championship title and the grand prize. There will be fabulous door prizes and great entertainment. KTV Latino Season 4. It's hot, it's live, and it's only on 5.
KTV Latino.
In August, PSU President Gerald Henry completed the first 3 weeks of his countrywide familiarization tour. Henry met with public services across the country and government departments in every district. When he arrived at the Belize City branch of the Belize Tax Service Department, the doors were closed and Henry was not welcomed. Henry says that he and his team were refused entry into the building. Today, we asked Henry why.
I don't know why Belize City was different. I can't speak to that. So
no reason was given?
No. It's just that we weren't allowed to go in.
Okay. Do you believe there is anything untoward that decision to not let the PSU president speak to his membership?
Like I said, I don't know. I don't know what what precipitated that from the director, and so we just moved on, because we had other places to go, and there are other ways so we can get to our members, right? And so we just move forward with it. The visit at the departments was just an introductory visit per se, right? It was pretty much like a meet and greet, right? And so there was no information that was really going to be shared. The information that was shared was at the actual meeting, right? And that was held. Right, and so it didn't really affect us, and hence the reason why it was just that we felt a bit disrespected, especially since we had just gotten to a meeting with the director at the time, and she said that she was very supportive of the union, right, and so we felt it a bit strange that she would not allow us to go into any of her branches. No.
Earlier today, when we caught up with the PSU president, we asked him about his recently concluded tour nationwide. President Henry visited government ministries and spoke to dozens of public service officers about work conditions. The PSU says it is extremely concerned by much inaction, complete lack of respect, willful neglect, hazardous environments, and spiteful actions shown towards most public officers. According to the PSU, the Ministry of Health is the ministry providing the worst environment within which public officers are demanded to work. Henry says that public officers are being subjected to unsanitary, if not inhumane working conditions and hazardous environments as they lack proper safety gears and equipment to keep them safe from hazardous waste, chemicals, and communicable diseases.
It's just the amount of the volume of grievances that they have, right? And some of them, are quite serious because these people are out there defending or protecting our lives and risking their own, simply because, like, for example, the ministry wouldn't provide them with face masks and things like that, no? So it was shocking to know that we have our public officers who are suffering out there. These people are working over and beyond what they're supposed to be doing, and with very, very, very limited resources. And so the frustration that they're facing on the job, and we are only humans. They try their best, right? And in fact, they admitted to us that they are trying their best, but sometimes it comes out. I didn't like the fact that our officers were being treated that way and spoken about in that light, because they are trying, right? They are doing their best with the resources that they have.
According to Henry, the government needs to prioritize its spending more appropriately to areas where it is urgently needed, such as health.
I always point to the fact that there is so much money being spent on these additional or these roads and so on and streets, right? 8 million for the Farbers Road. We have I don't know how much million for the one going to the airport, but look at the condition of the entrance to the hospitals. When you leave from here, you go video the entrance to Carl Houston Memorial Hospital, the emergencies entrance, the big holes that are there, right? So these things, you're spending so much money on that, and the entrance to these hospitals are in the worst conditions, you know. So that is just an indication of what is happening within the hospitals as well. These people are literally using some of their own resources, right, to try to get the job done, you see, and have to, you don't have to be MacGyver, MacGyver trying to, make shift, apparatus to perform their duties.
Police are tonight still investigating a shooting in Belize City that happened last Thursday, during which 3 men were injured. One of them passed away on Sunday at the KHMH. It is reported that Justin Richards, Marikin Drury, and Jamal Eligio were standing together on Santa Barbara Street when a vehicle drove up to them and an occupant fired multiple shots in their direction. Eligio was mortally wounded and succumbed to his injury over the weekend. While several persons have been detained in connection with the incident, an arrest is yet to be made. According to Eligio's aunt, she responded to the scene of the shooting instinctively.
I know that my nephew and boys and thing have problem and thing, right? So I say I have to look out who they get shot for when I hear the gunshot. I just run out safe down. Anything concerning my family there. So I not run out, they're gonna see the gunshot, gonna see what happen. And that.
By that time, as you mentioned, when you got there, someone identified you as Justin's mother. They had already taken them to the hospital, or they were still on the scene?
They don't take him there. They don't take there already. I don't went to the hospital at the time when they got there. My daughter went to the hospital, so I don't really know. Like, they can't find. Since he get up the hospital, they get shot. I never end up there. I never got to the hospital. I never end up the hospital.
What are police telling you, though? What happened as to how your son and your nephew got shot?
Well, we don't have no talk with the police now. Totally, we don't have no talk with the police.
2 maintenance workers caught on surveillance camera were sent to jail after they pleaded guilty to the burglary of a warehouse on Queen Street in Belize City. Sometime between last Thursday and Friday, they trespassed the warehouse off D Sprout located on Queen Street and stole an assortment of boys' and girls' sandals and a bucket of paint, all to a value of $4,800. This morning, Marlon Young and Reagan Ahmad Gomez appeared before Senior Magistrate Tricia Pitts Anderson and were jointly read a single charge of burglary. After they pleaded guilty, they begged the court for leniency, but after due consideration by the magistrate, they were both sent to prison. In the case of Young, a repeat offender with 4 previous convictions for crimes of dishonesty, he was sentenced to 7 years. Gomez, a first-time offender with no previous conviction, was sentenced to 3 years imprisonment. The length of the prison term was due to the prevalence of the crime, which has been on the rise in Belize. A 61-year-old man who was caught burglarizing a gift shop learned a lesson the hard way when he was convicted of burglary and sentenced to 7 years behind bars, even though he did not end up with the items he had taken. The sentence was imposed by Magistrate Emerson Banner on Ellsworth Leslie for a December 18, 2018 incident at the Alton Haas site. There, he was caught burglarizing the gift shop of Keith Wallace. The elderly man was detected by a park ranger, Edwin Augustin. Augustin testified in trial that he heard noises and then saw Leslie exit the gift shop. He said he told Leslie to leave what he had taken and go. Leslie then took out 7 bowls he was carrying in a knapsack. When Augustin said he would not report the matter, he did call Wallace to notify him of the burglary. Though he admitted he had burglarized the shop, but did not steal the bowls, Leslie was convicted for burglary and handed down a stiff sentence. The government side of the House last Friday gave final approval to the write-off of the $40,000 to Joshua Perdomo, the son of the cabinet secretary. As soon as the motion was presented, it came under criticism from the opposition as well as from other sectors. Today, the BYM, which is the youth arm of the PUP, is making a call to all youths to demand that their student loans also be written off. According to their statement, under the UDP, quote, "We live in a Belize that is biased. We live in a country that is not fair. and in one where only those select cronies obtain the opportunities that should be present for all our young brothers and sisters, unquote. The BYM says it is despicable that all members of the government voted to forgive the loan, but none of them have ever presented a single solution that would benefit all students. On Friday, Area Representative Karim Musa debunked the government's argument that the loan was being written off because of the statute of limitations. Musa noted that the 12-year period had not expired. After the break, KTV Latino is back with a bang, and we'll have all the details.
Improving lives, delivering quality. Water for you and me in Belize.
5.
KTV Latino.
KTV Latino is back, and the show starts at 8:30 from the Bliss tonight. A pool of 10 singers with diverse backgrounds from across the country will be doubling up and competing with Spanish songs in the hopes of winning the 2019 competition. So get ready for the new season of KTV Latino. Here's more with Dwayne Moody.
KTV Latino.
It's back and it's only going to be live on Channel 5. KTV Latino Season 4 begins tonight with its first live show inside the Bliss Center for the Performing Arts. In this season, the producer has thrown in some twists and curveballs. They will each sing a song of their choice, but will also have to perform a second song from a challenge board. The board features 50 popular songs sung at karaoke bars. In another twist, the top scorer for the night is safe from elimination for the following week. Now, 10 hopefuls from various parts of the country have made the cut. They include professionals, entrepreneurs, as well as students.
Se preparó, se puso linda, su amiga llamaba, ya lo derrumba, nada le importó, porque su novio él le engañaba, como si nada. Se preparó, se puso linda, su amiga llamaba, ya lo derrumba, nada le importó, porque su novio él le engañaba, como si nada. Te han dicho de mí que soy como el río, que lleva, que besa y se va. Te han dicho que soy frívolo y vacío.
No me queda más que perderme en un abismo de tristeza y lágrimas. No me queda más que aguantarme mi derrota y brindarte felicidad.
The winner walks away with the grand prize of $10,000 by getting the most text votes during the competition. To help you decide, the judges are songstress Cindy Rowland, performer Robert Captain Robehor, and musician Carlos Perote, who is returning from previous seasons of KTV Latino. Even throughout the auditions, the judges were critical of the performers to ensure that they bring their best to the stage.
When it comes to your singing, I noticed that you choke one spell. It's because you're singing from your throat. You need to breathe. You need to work on your breathing. Reggaeton is a type of singing that requires a lot of lengthy sentences. So to express it out, you need to breathe a lot.
I like your voice. I notice you have a natural vibrato in the end of some of your words, right? Nice. However, you know that performance is one of that adds on as well as singing. I like that you're putting your soul into this song. I can see that you're enjoying it. Your expression on your face is good, right? Very good performance.
All 3 judges will also be able to save only one performer throughout the entire competition, and that decision must be unanimous. So get ready as KTV Latino Season 4 begins tonight. Dwayne Moody for News 5.
KTV Latino.
Turning to a grave issue endangering the ecosystem. Coral reefs worldwide are under pressure from a number of threats: climate change, pollution, coastal development, invasive species, and even diseases. About 5 years ago, a disease appeared off the coast of Florida that has been killing out large swaths of its coral reef. The disease, called the stony coral tissue loss disease, is baffling marine scientists and researchers. They're not able to determine what exactly is driving the disease and how to prevent it. Well, Belize and several other countries in the region are now facing the same problem. It was detected back in July of this year in one reserve, and so far it hasn't been detected in any other parts of the country. The damaging coral disease can kill off parts of the reef, and Belize, like other countries, are searching for ways to manage it. It seems like a very difficult task ahead, considering Florida has been unable to control the spread. Today, a number of agencies met for a joint session hosted by the Belize Marine Fund and Reef Rescue Initiative to come up with a way forward to respond to the crisis. Reporter Andrea Palanco reports.
Belize's reef system is made up of a range of plants and animals. It's an incredible body of biodiversity that is supported by more than 65 species of corals and 500 species of fish. It is an underwater ecosystem that supports our fisheries and tourism industries. But back in July, something deadly started to attack some of these corals.
It's a new disease that has emerged out of Florida in, we believe, in the US, and it's appearing in a number of countries around the region. The scientists are calling the disease stony coral tissue loss disease. It doesn't affect humans, it doesn't affect all types of corals. It's affecting the brain corals, the boulder corals, those kind of slow-growing corals that are really important. They're fundamental corals for the reef and in building the reefs.
This disease is also present in the coral reefs of several Caribbean countries. In Belize, it is in Bacalar Chico Marine Reserve. It was first observed in the northern part of the reserve, but in recent weeks, it has been spreading further down south within the same reef complex.
Since it was detected in June, we have now seen it like roughly about 3 miles into the Belizean waters. If anyone knows the northern borders of Belize, the Bacalar Chico Marine Reserve, it has been covering more than half the entire reef area of the Bacalar Chico Marine Reserve so far. So it's within, last seen in the Bacalar Chico area of Basel Jones. We have detected it, and we believe that it's moving farther south towards San Pedro.
And that's the problem with this disease. It spreads quickly and can kill off from 66 to 100% of the affected coral colonies. Diseased colonies can die in a matter of weeks or months. It is a disease that affects more than 20 species of corals in Belize.
It can cause lesions on the coral, and it causes the tissue of the animals of the coral to really slough off or to come away, to disappear from the corals. So it leaves bare skeleton in patches on the corals. It spreads rapidly on the coral colonies. It spreads rapidly on the corals themselves and between different types of corals. And what we're seeing is that it kills about 2/3 to 100% of all the corals of the susceptible species. So it has quite a high rate of mortality, and it has a high rate of spread between the susceptible corals. So it's a very serious risk to coral reefs in the region.
Researchers and scientists are still trying to find out what causes it and how it can be stopped.
We have multiple diseases on corals in the Caribbean. They've never been able to identify this for any coral disease. So we're guessing. We're basically guessing. We don't know what is the causative agent. We do know that there's a lot of things we can do to lessen impacts. So if you have better water quality, meaning less sewage, less pollution in the water, you're better off. And the other benefit for Belize is that most of our reefs are offshore, so they're not right up against the coastline like they are in some of the other areas. And we also have some very interesting water circulation patterns, meaning it's not just like north to south or east to west. So hopefully these are giving us a little bit of leg up in the sense that it won't ravage our reefs as quickly as it has in other areas. But this one there's no abating, it's not associated with warmer waters, and also it affects many, many species, over 20 species of some of our slower growing corals. So that makes it stand apart as sort of a more crisis epidemic than the previous coral diseases.
So it's a big concern for the region. For Belize, it is worrying. This is a disease that poses a serious threat to the health of our reef system, a system that provides approximately $500 million in services every year. If the disease continues to spread to other parts of our reef complex, it means bad business for our economy and our biodiversity. Our coral reefs provide habitat and shelter for most marine organisms, like the conch and lobster fisheries, which bring in over $28 million in revenue every year, as well as finfish, which is a big source of food for locals. The death of our coral colonies also means hundreds of millions in losses for the tourism industry. And perhaps one of the most important but often underreported values of our coral reef is the coastline protection it provides from hurricanes and storms. So this threatens the livelihoods and the protection of thousands of Belizeans.
The Mesoamerican reef is central to the economies of the region, and in particular Belize, with fisheries and tourism being two of our top economic earners in this country. And so it's not only important for us from a biodiversity standpoint and the fact that the reef system is unique and is really a universal heritage, but at the end of the day, it helps determines how well we do from a number of our productive sectors.
There's some recent publications that suggest that Belize's reef provides over $9 million a year in averted damages, meaning preventing any storm damages. So losing a healthy reef system would put our coastlines more vulnerable to storm damage. One of the important things about the corals for fisheries as well as for tourism is they provide so much habitat for other organisms. We have this very intricate food web out there, so even the little tiny fish and the little tiny worms that live in the corals and the little tiny crabs, those are part of our food web. Those bring in larger fish, larger invertebrates. And so if you lose that bottom of the pyramid with no coral reefs, it could have a catastrophic effect.
It is a very real threat, and that is why conservationists, government agencies, and marine scientists have been working to monitor and try to manage the spread of the disease. The team has been applying a treatment made up of chlorine and shea butter to the diseased corals. But biologist Henry Brown says that it is not working, and so they plan to explore another form of treatment being used in Florida.
For the last month, we had 2 sites that we were applying it on in the Bacalar Chico Marine Reserve, and so we've seen that the disease is still spreading on those colonies that we had treated. So presently we're seeing that that treatment isn't working.
But for a country like Belize with limited resources and personnel, we must collaborate to understand this disease. So today they're hosting a workshop to share regional best practices to learn from Florida, Mexico, and other countries that are affected. The aim is to come up with a plan to help guide Belize's efforts to control this coral disease.
We certainly don't want a region like Belize to have to try to repeat everything that's already been done, and so that's one important thing about trying to share all the knowledge that we can and to learn from one another. It will definitely be a challenge to manage, and we're going to try and use every possible tool at our disposal and use all the lessons learned that we already have. And so these kinds of workshops are really, really important for sharing knowledge and information to try to tackle this together, because this isn't just a problem for Belize now, it's starting to show up in other parts of the Caribbean.
Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
As you heard, the Coral Reef Monitoring Team is working with regional partners to learn more about the stony coral tissue loss disease. But that is just one problem that the corals in Belize are facing. Another threat that we've reported on is the issue of coral bleaching. In recent years, Belize has reported high levels of bleaching in some of its sites, and according to preliminary surveys done in 2019, there is massive bleaching happening. This is expected due to the warm temperatures we have experienced this year. Just this week, Coral Watch issued an Alert Level 1 and Level 2 for coral bleaching conditions in the region. Today, coral expert and founder of Fragments of Hope, Lisa Karn, shared some of her observations.
Is bleaching right now, so October is our peak month. We just put out a video, about a 3-minute video on this whole topic that you can access on our YouTube channel, Fragments of Hope, or on our website. But in a nutshell, 2017 was the most severe bleaching event that Mesoamerica has seen since 1998. even. So it's become true that it's basically there is some level of bleaching almost every year. What differs is the severity each year. So in 2017, we actually had some partial mortality, meaning it caused some death of corals, whereas sometimes if it's not so severe, they can recover. But even when they recover, they are sort of set back. They're stressed out, right? So they don't grow as well. So this is an annual event, and it's been happening all over the world. It's getting worse every year. That's directly due to climate change. The only good news, again, is that the corals that we work with are beginning to show some thermal tolerance. So those specific corals at Laughing Bird Key, for example, they never bleached in 2017 when everything else did. And this is highlighted in our video sort of our way forward when we're talking about restoring reefs, that we make sure we look for the stronger corals that are already somewhat adapted to the higher temperatures that we are experiencing. And this year we are seeing bleaching as well.
And on the topic of coral reef health, the Fragments of Hope has been working in several sites for many more years to reseed devastated reef with resilient and diverse corals farmed in man-made nurseries. Their work has helped to prevent the loss of valuable marine ecosystems and is recognized as one of the region's most successful reef restoration projects, with over 60,000 coral fragments planted. Lisa Karn of Fragments of Hope gave us an update on their coral restoration efforts.
National Park, so we've been there over a decade, but we've expanded now to over 10 different sites and over 4 different MPAs. So we've also begun in Saltwater Key Marine Reserve and Turnef Atoll Marine Reserve, Gladden Spit and the Silk Keys Marine Reserve, and that's going really well. Again, those corals, the acroporids, those are the main reef building or branching corals. Local names or common names are elkhorn and staghorn, and in Creole, pantail and pipeshank. And these are very fast growing and branching main reef building. They grow in the shallow areas which provide the shoreline protection. And the only good news in this whole story is that these corals are as yet unaffected by the new disease. And just to clarify, the main corals that we've been working with outplanting for over 10 years now, these corals luckily do not get this disease. So I think that will be another conclusion of our meeting, is that we'll decide restoration as usual will continue with the corals that are unaffected by the disease, and we will send our talks about what to do about the corals that we are worried about.
When we come back, there is a push for a fisheries bill to give protection to fisher folks. The Belize network of NGOs wants the government to address illegal, unreported, and regulated fishing activities as a matter of national priority. Government is particularly being urged to enact the Fisheries Resources Bill by introducing the piece of legislation at the next House meeting. The bill has been on the drawing board for more than years.
We felt it important and necessary to acknowledge the efforts of several of our conservation NGO members who have been working tirelessly and for a long time along with the Fisheries Department, some fisheries groups and other stakeholders to work towards a modernized fisheries legislation. So we felt it important to lend our support in that way, knowing that this group, actually a task force, had been put together to work towards preparing a modernized fisheries bill, has been working at it for over 9 or 10 years, which is extremely long, too long. And it has been several years now that the group has felt that the bill was ready to advance and to be endorsed by cabinet and then tabled at the House of Representatives. No? So it has been a long time, and over many years there have been several developments which the current antiquated legislation does not address. So that is essentially what we sought to accomplish, to acknowledge the efforts of this group and to encourage the government to take the bill through its steps so it could very soon be enacted into legislation. I have been informed that the relevant minister has said that the bill should be tabled at the upcoming House meeting, whenever that is called. We have heard that several times before, so we're not holding our breath, but we, of course, would want to be pleasantly surprised, no?
We asked the Fisheries Administrator Beverly Wade what has been the holdup. She says there are a number of issues that have caused the delay for the new fisheries bill to be enacted. Wade says she also champions the call for this new bill and says that they have been informed that it will be tabled at the next sitting of the House of Representatives.
We are actually the champions of that bill with our partners. I could understand the advocacy from our partners because we very much need that bill to come into place to ensure that we have a modernized and robust regulatory framework to adequately ensure sustainable small-scale fisheries and development in Belize. I think really the bill have suffered from a number of unfortunate delays. Whether it had, a lot of the delays have really been administratively changes in ministerial portfolios, and each time these things happen, there is a new system of going back. It has also suffered from, because it's been delayed for so long, you tend to now have to go back and re-engage stakeholders on areas that you had already done before. And those are some of the unfortunate things that happen when you leave something for so long. Being optimistic now, the good side about it is that we have now, as far as I know, done all the consultations, and we are being told that the bill will be tabled at the next House sitting. So the Fisheries Department, along with the stakeholders, is looking forward to that tabling at the next House sitting.
So why are conservationists and their partners clamoring for the bill to be passed? Well, they say that when passed and enacted, it means that there will be stronger enforcement of fisheries regulations and increased promotion of sustainable fisheries management, among other pieces of legislation. Today, Fisheries Administrator Beverly Wade shared more about some of the details of the bill and what it means for the protection and management of our natural resources.
The main thing is that we have a national strategy for sustainable small-scale fisheries in Belize. And one of the biggest attributes to that bill is now ensuring the long-term tenure and livelihoods for small-scale fisheries in Belize. So what the bill calls for now are elements such as a management plan for each fishery that you would have had established in Belize to ensure that there's a level of participation and a level of consideration for the traditional small-scale fishers that have engaged in the exploitation of those resources for their livelihoods over generations. The other thing that the bill does, it formalizes the input of stakeholders into the decision-making process through a legislated now Fisheries Advisory Council, which now allows various stakeholders, state and non-state stakeholders, to now have a say in how you move forward in management policy and development of the bill. The other thing that the bill does, the bill takes a holistic approach to fisheries management, and it really looks at the entire ecosystems-based approach, which takes into consideration from the conservation aspects to the social aspects of fisheries, and what are those considerations and how do we now ensure that they're incorporated and integrated into the way forward with fisheries management in Belize. And finally, what the bill has done is that it has now created the framework to encourage more responsibility and stewardship from the users of the resource, and to also strengthen the areas with regards to enforcement to ensure that what is in the bill are applications that serve as proper deterrents to illegal fishing.
The Fisheries Department says that they are ready for the new conch season. If you'll recall, the season was closed off 2 months early because the quota for the queen conch fishery was met by May 1st. The closure has come and gone as the season reopened on October 1st. Beverly Wade, the fisheries administrator, says that they expect a good year and will be monitoring the waters to curb illegal fishing.
As a matter of fact, the production for the first couple of weeks of the season have been excellent. I noticed all over social media there are pictures of fishermen boasting about their catch. So far it looks very good for us. We're just fortunate in Belize that we have a management regime that is answering to the various considerations for conch. And we're grateful that we still have a very viable fishery, because at the end of the day, it is important for the livelihoods of our 3,000 plus fishers. And we look forward to a good season. We will continue to monitor as we do. We've taken the adaptive management approach to our conch fishery, where we monitor periodically through the open season to ensure that it is performing the way that we expect it to perform. And as you said, and to apply the decisions that will ensure not only a good season for this year, but also a good season for next year.
I know, Ms. Bev, I know that one of the problems that the conch, the lobster experience, those illegal fishers and those persons who are not complying with the law, is there any maybe stepping up of monitoring and enforcement measures on behalf of the fisheries department?
Oh, of course, and we work very closely with our partner agencies and even our NGOs. And so during this time there is a heightened vigilance within the waters, and also a lot of outreach with the fishing community, because at the end of the day, it really depends on their buy-in to why we need compliance by them. And of course, with the passage of the Fisheries Bill, I think that will bolster our enforcement effectiveness at the end of the day.
Coming up after the break, the focus of Mental Health Week is working together to prevent suicide. This week, Belize joins the international community in raising importance of mental health. World Mental Health Day will be observed on Thursday under the theme, Working Together to Prevent Suicide. During this week, several activities have been planned to educate and raise awareness of mental health issues. Leading the charge is the Mental Health Welcome Resource Center under the coordination of Joyce Ellis. According to Ellis, there has been an increase among male mental health patients. However, hope for reintegration into society is alive.
We have integrate persons with mental illness back into society. They are working and they are on compliance with medication, and that's great. But beside that, when it comes to the stigma, we want to reach the families first, because if we don't sensitize the family, then sometimes the family give that spin off that, oh, I don't mess with him because he's crazy and things like that. And that's where people tend to know who is mentally challenged, because the family don't want to be bothered and they themselves cast judgment and things like that. We're not blaming the family, because it's very difficult to deal with someone with mental illness. So what we farm here at the center is like a support. The moment you have someone who suffers mental illness, they have done their assessment, they're on compliance with medication, then the center is like a daycare for them. It's a drop-in. They come during the day, and then the evenings they can go back home.
And that's the news. Don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/News5Live. I'm Marlene Coyar. Thanks for joining us, and from all of us here at News 5, good night.